Hello YouTube! Since you seem to really enjoy this new concept, I've decided to make it a series on this channel. And so today we're going to do part 2 of me judging and grading every single fitness channel. Now, if you haven't watched part 1, I recommend you do, it's in the description. But for the people who are new to the concept, it's quite easy. I'm basically looking at every single fitness YouTuber and I'm trying to apply objective criteria to their channels so as to be able to give you guys a proper review. I'm trying to be as fair as possible and not let my personal feelings interfere. And this is why I have actually managed to create something that I think is as close to possible as a fair judging system. Now, because I'm human, of course, it's never going to be fully objective. And therefore, I also want you to understand that there are certain quirks of my grading system that can be a little bit confusing. So before I go into today's episode, let me quickly explain to you the way I function. A lot of you guys last time in the comments actually pointed out rightfully that I tend to grade very rigorously and that it's very difficult to have a top grade. And for the French people on the channel, I'm certain that this didn't really surprise you at all because it's the way we do it back home, meaning that if you go to a good school, most likely you're going to be graded from 0 to 20, but in reality you're being graded from 5 to 15, meaning that it's really, really hard to get below 5 and it's really hard to get above 15. You never get a 17 or 18, and a 20 you can just go back to bed. It's not gonna happen because it would be perfection, and perfection doesn't exist. I even had teachers who told us straight up, hey, if you get above a 15, this means that you did something so extraordinary that I consider that I myself could have done it, meaning that it was almost impossible. It's a way of grading that can be extremely frustrating, but it's also the way I was raised, and therefore it's the way I judge people. If it bothers you, I highly suggest that you just put the grades on a curve and you modify them. But if you understand the system, you also understand that the difference between 100 points and 150 points is night and fucking day, because 150 is pretty much as high as it's going to be. So that's for the people who are a bit confused about the system. I also encourage you guys to just not compare grades too much because it's not how it works. I don't grade people based on one another and the grades that each person did get because it would just ruin the entire fun of the experience. It's all based off of the criteria, and the criteria apply differently to each person because they are different people. I know that it sounds completely fucked up and unfair, but it's like, imagine if you passed a philosophy exam and you compare your copy or you compare your paper at the end with another guy, and you're going to find out that they had a better grade, but you think they did a worse job. You just went down the rabbit hole of the literal arts and the fine arts in reality, where there's no such thing as an objective criteria to be judged on, and therefore you're just going to torture yourself trying to figure out what works and what doesn't. So I encourage you to just relax and enjoy it, because at the end of the day, we both know, you and I, that you're not there just for an objective review. You're there because it's fun to witness a Frenchman shit on the competition. So take that stick out of your ass, put your brain on the side for a second and enjoy. I am personally having a ton of fun writing these episodes, so don't ruin it trying to be too serious, and let's have a good time together. Also, for the people who were questioning the balance of the grades, why is every single criteria 10 points? Well, it's very simple. I'm not going to give more points for like programming, for example, because it would add subjectivity into the mix. Even though I consider that programming is more important, if I grade it based on what I think matters the most, I'm going to give 50 points for integrity, and now the entire balance doesn't work anymore. It's important that every single criteria has the same amount of points, so as to give a chance to the people that might not align with mine or yours sensitivity. If you're on this channel, you most likely like quality fitness content, meaning that you want me to destroy the likes of Greg Doucette and Ryan Humiston, and you are maybe surprised I got so many points last time. It's because I'm trying to be fair. Just because you feel like this doesn't mean that it's actually the way everyone thinks. Because if it were the case, remember, these channels wouldn't exist and they wouldn't be popular. So it's important to keep that in mind. I'm not doing a popularity contest here either, or else these guys would be winning by 1,000 points. I'm trying to be balanced. So some of the criteria are efficiency based and some are ethics based. I'm not trying to pass any moral judgment. It still sips out of me from time to time because I'm only human, even though I'm trying to be a machine for these episodes, but it's just the way it's going to be. So again, take that into account when you listen to the grades and understand that at the end of the day, it's all in good fun. I'm not trying to spread any negativity. I'm just trying to give you my honest reviews. Now, I'm not going to cover again the criteria I'm going to use. It's in part 1 if you're interested. And with today's start of the episode, I shall begin with shredded sports science. Programming 6.5. Now, the guy clearly knows about programming, don't get me wrong, but he took his channel in a different direction altogether because I think he understood that the people who watch him are not super interested in volume and intensity. They are more there for the gossip. And even though he still talks about training from time to time, it has taken a back seat, so I cannot give more than a 6.5. Plus, it's a little bit of a theoretical approach. There's not much application on his channel, and so it's not as useful as it could be. Experience 4. Sort of for the same reason, he hasn't managed to achieve much with his own body in the ranks of fitness, and so I cannot give him more than that because the experience you accumulate by yourself, be it empirical or anecdotal, is what is the most valuable to share with others because that way they can relate and they can trust that you know what you're talking about. He's a little bit disincarnated in a sense, meaning that he doesn't really walk the walk, and that is a death sentence when it comes to experience. Now, I'm certain he has a ton of qualifications, and that's great. That's the reason why he has 4 points, but he cannot get any higher than that. Integrity 8. The guy has integrity in spades. He is dedicated to actually pointing out the bullshit in the fitness industry. From what I've seen doing my little detective work, he doesn't sell anything, no supplements, no programs. And so he has to get a good grade for integrity because it's part of his character and shtick that he is someone to be trusted and to actually listen to. The reason why I docked 2 points is because, for the people who remember, during the entire Afrinex fiasco, because he was one of the lapdogs, he refused to actually take a stand and to point out the finger at Jeff, who is a massive fraud, and therefore it's a little bit hypocritical on his part because he constantly calls out other people, but when it's one of his buddies, he refused to do so, so he cannot get a 10. Usefulness 4. It's a good channel, don't get me wrong, but if what you want is information to get better at lifting, it's not really that useful at all. It's a gossip channel again. So we're going to have a lot of fun, for sure. You might learn a thing or two, but most of what you learn, you'll learn through deconstruction. He criticizes a lot of things, and that's great. But if you're going to break something down, you have to rebuild afterwards. And having a few snippets here and there in the videos where he tells you this is the right method is not enough. You need entire videos dedicated to the right method. He used to do that. There used to be segments, entire segments about a specific topic, but it sort of faded away with time because, again, he realized that people don't go on his channel for that. They go to be entertained. So if you're a serious lifter, not that useful. Character 7. I like the guy. Personally, I think that he is a good person. He doesn't strike you as someone that you don't want to listen to or that could be despicable. He has a little bit of a sardonic side to him, which is part of his charm, but I can also see that sort of putting off some people. I've heard some people say they detest him because he's a DL, he doesn't even fucking lift. Who does he think he is? He has that high and mighty attitude that the Brits tend to have. It's a little bit funny because the French share the same attribute. It's maybe because we fought wars for so long that we just started to copy one another to be able to survive in this world. I don't know. I personally vibe with this. I understand that some people don't. So a 7 is a good grade for character. Dogmatism 6. When you apply theory to everything, you're going to be dogmatic because you never actually bounce it off reality. And that's something that you see a ton. The dogmatism, as I said on these episodes, is going to be very high for the type of person who has a more rigorous scientific approach to training. It's sort of part for the course. The thing with him is that, of course, you're going to have people who are going to tell you, hey, why should I listen to this guy who apparently knows everything about science and how to build muscle, but he cannot build muscle on his own frame? How does that make sense? It's the reason why he gets only a 6. It could have been much worse, but because, again, he's shifting away from that type of content, he's not as dogmatic anymore because he doesn't need to be. Originality, 7.5. He sort of represents something that is widespread on this platform, don't get me wrong, which is the quote-unquote drama videos that disguise themselves as informational. But he created his own brand in a sense, meaning that I cannot cite you another guy that does it the way he does it. And so I have to give points for that. It's fairly original. He made his own type of thumbnails. When you see one of his thumbnails, you know exactly that that's him. He didn't copy anyone else. It's not generic at all. He has his own style. He has his own flair that's very recognizable. It's not bland at all. So he gets a good grade for originality. Black Pill, 5. Maybe surprising because you could tell me, well, how does he black pill people? He is exposing fitness for what it is. Well, yeah, I agree with that. But understand that all of these people that, again, deconstruct non-stop and are only focused on the negative, only focused on this guy does this and this guy does that, at the end of the day, they also do a ton of damage because they destroy the faith that people have in the entire industry and in people and also in themselves. And it's paradoxical because he doesn't only do that. He has positive videos. I would cite, for example, the series he did on the Bioneer, where he preaches the Bioneer and says that he does a good job. These videos are the type that we should see more often on that type of channels. But he also understands that people flock towards negativity more often, and so he sort of feeds his audience black pills, in a sense, by way of making content for them, because he points out standards that are ridiculous because of PED use, but at the same time, he lowers natural standards. So he has to get a quote-unquote bad grade for that. Humor, 9. I personally find the guy incredibly funny. Again, it's sort of my bias, even though I must say that I think British humor is widely recognized globally as one of the best. Dry humor is, when done properly, incredibly hilarious, and he does it perfectly well. It's not too much, it's not overdone. It doesn't take away from the video. It's just one snippet here and there, but it always fucking hits. And I'm someone who is extremely exigent in the realm of comedy. I'm someone that's not easy to make laugh, but that guy got a ton of laughs out of me. And again, he knows that because he markets his channel as sarcastic, and that's the perfect term to describe him. He nails that 100%. Parasocial, 9. Great grade for the Parasocial for a simple reason. It's because he doesn't have fanboys. You can't really have fanboys when you're not big or strong yourself. He is sort of like a spokesperson. If you look at the news, for example, news anchors tend to just be, or at least they used to be, now it's celebrities and fucking comedians, but it used to be that the guy would be transparent. He would just be something to convey the information through. That's exactly what he is. He is a good journalist in a sense, because he doesn't take over, and therefore he gets a great grade for Parasocial because his audience doesn't really bow down to him that much. They just take information from him. Sure, they like him a ton because he has a huge channel, but for someone with hundreds of thousands of subs, he managed to control that. I don't know if he actually intended to do that, but he did do a good job. Empathy, 7.5. It's sort of a middle-of-the-road grade here for the simple reason that he's not someone you cannot connect with, but again, because he's so transparent, there's not much to latch onto. And also, he doesn't make much of an effort to reach out because the information that he actually pushes forward takes priority, and it's not experience that comes from him, he just relays, so the empathy is not that high. God Complex, 9. He doesn't really take himself that seriously, and that adds to the joke. If he did, he would be a terrible channel, because when someone who's small starts talking like as an expert that knows everything and that is like the greatest thing on earth, it's immediately just unsufferable. But he has enough of an ability to understand that it's important to make fun of yourself and to also poke fun at yourself and the content that you make, that he gets a great grade for that. I just want to point out the fact that yes, God Complex 9 means that he has almost no God complexes. I understand that some people would think that doing a negative for these would be much more logical, and you are correct. But because I want to grade out of 200, because in France we grade out of 20, I did that in that fashion. Also for the people who think that 200 is too it's too cuckoo, or it's too annoying, you can just divide by 2 and then you can put them on a curve, and there you go, you have your own method of grading. Production quality 10. Excellent sound, excellent image, excellent editing, there's nothing else to add. Science 6. Because every time he brings up science, it's going to most likely be to actually make a point that furthers his agenda. That is usually what science is used for on this platform, but it's a little bit annoying to see the art, because yes, science is also an art, being weaponized to that extent, and therefore I have to dock points for this. You will see that with the science thing, it's really hard to get points, because if you don't talk about science, I dock points. If you talk about science, again, to further your agenda, I dock points, etc., etc. I don't know why I just said that science is an art. I think that's bullshit. Clickbait 3. A huge channel, so you can expect some clickbait on the channel. The titles are pretty outrageous, the thumbnails are outrageous, but that's sort of part for the course because he makes videos about PD users, so he uses PD users in his thumbnails. You could always point out the fact that that's a little bit hypocritical because he profits from their image, and so he also participates in promulgating PDUs on the platform. That's sort of the snake that bites its own tail. I'm not going to pass judgment here because morality is not the point, but he clickbaits like a motherfucker and therefore he gets a terrible grade. Content recycling 7. High grade, even though I know for a fact he recycles videos, and you could tell me NH, he makes the same video every single time. It's all about PD users this and PD users that. You are correct, but understand one thing. Content recycling doesn't mean that you're making the same video again and again. Content recycling means that you're doing that and it's something that is perceivable, right? It's like if I served you pasta every single fucking day and you can tell it's pasta and you get bored of it, I'm recycling the dish. But if I serve it with a different sauce or a different meat or different whatever every day and you never get bored of it, technically I'm recycling the dish, but you don't manage to actually make it out. You don't realize it. And that's the point. So he gets a good grade for that. It's, as we say in show business, the biggest sin is to be boring. Never be boring. And so if you're not boring, you're not recycling. Conciseness, 9.5. The videos are to the point, they're getting shorter and shorter because he understands that that's the new meta, so he gets a good point. They're structured, he never rambles, the humor bits are very short, excellent. Seniority 8. The channel is much older than you might think. He started with more fitness-related content, and he moved away when he realized that the drama and the clickbait and the gossip was much more popular. But I can't really blame him for that. Plus, he still does a good job at what he does. He has some positive influence. And he sort of has a sans faute, as we say in French, where he never went through like an outrageous period. So I cannot dock points. He has been on the platform for a while. He's been doing a good job. So he does get a good grade. Supplements, 10. He doesn't sell supplements. And he also calls out the bullshit supplements in the industry. So that's an excellent grade on this. And then for physique, I gave him a 1 because he has a physical envelope, because if he didn't, I would give him a 0, so that's a 1 by default. Total grade for shredded sports science, 137 points. Musclemonsters. Programming 7. The programming is sort of hidden underneath a layer of shiny thumbnails and good editing, so you don't really see it. It's there. I'm not a fan of what they turned it into because they don't really go that far. It's the reason why they get a 7. They sort of stopped at the surface level because they understand that that's just enough to attract noobs. When you talk about reps, when you talk about sets, exercise variation, which is their bread and butter, that's how you do it if you want to get huge. So it's still programming, you'll still learn about programming, but you're going to hit a wall at some point, and that wall is never going to be broken down. Experience 7.5. The guy that runs the channel has went through a stage of a very skinny body. He made all of the mistakes that skinny dudes tend to make, not eating enough, under-recovering, etc. So he has a lot of experience to actually share with his audience. He doesn't get the full marks because he doesn't really know much about strength. It's not really his area of expertise. It shouldn't really matter because I'm judging muscle building channels, but I also understand that some people have specializations and they won't find much of useful or relevant information on the Musclemonsters page. So it's still a decent grade. It cannot be higher than that. Integrity 6. 6 because he aligns perfectly with what happens with big fitness pages once they break the million. You have two choices. You either stay with your integrity and your channel doesn't really go anywhere, or you sell out and you do whatever the fuck works to make the page grow and therefore you sell your soul, but you make it. You are successful. He made a choice. He is successful. Therefore his integrity took a hit. I also sort of perused this website and I saw a portion that was a little bit scammerismy in a sense, meaning that there was talk about like a special method of training that gets you like 20 pounds of muscle. That smells. Like I know that smell, I don't like that smell. Plus he sells a shit ton of supplements. So a 6, a well-deserved 6. Usefulness 5. You might say, NH, you're so mean, why 5? Well, 5 because the issue with the channel is that you're being put in a hamster wheel and now you're running. And you click on each video and you think you're going somewhere, but no, you're running in the world. Why? Because the content doesn't go anywhere. It doesn't really progress. It's going to keep you at the same level because it's basic level stuff. There's nothing wrong with basic level stuff, but it sort of outruns its usefulness at some point. At some point, you're going to have to move on. This is typically the type of page that you're going to follow for your first year, and then you're going to sort of forget it exists because you're going to learn nothing from it. You're already going to know everything they have to say. Character 6, again, maybe a little bit rough, but it's for the simple reason that the guy is transparent, meaning that it's like there's a clone factory somewhere and they picked one guy and he runs the channel. I get that vibe a ton with fitness YouTubers where they look interchangeable, they have no personality to speak of, and I understand why. It's because that way people can project their own personality onto you, but it's also really boring to watch. And no offense to the guy, it's just, again, the way I perceive it. I felt the same about a few channels in my previous review, but I cannot give more because to judge a character, there needs to be a character. And I feel like there's no characters here. It's just like a male model or someone who runs the page because it's his job. I don't feel much passion or anything. Dogmatism 9, I took a point off because I vividly remember writing a comment on their page like 2 years ago and the guy flipping his shit because I disagreed with him. So it's a little bit unfair, but fuck it, I take a point off. For the rest, he's not dogmatic at all, and that's for the simple reason that he doesn't really need to be dogmatic. He's not fighting any ideological battle. He's just, again, making content that is going to be clickable. Originality 3, it's a basic fitness page. And that's the reason why also I said that I don't see a character there. It's because if I tell you Musclemonsters, can you tell me the name of the guy? Can you visualize his face in your head? There are some people, once you watch them, you'll remember them for the rest of your life. Him, I watch him 2 days later, I try to recall the way his face looks, and I can't. It just vanishes. It's like the guy is a ghost or something. And that's sort of a problem because the channel is, again, it's just generic. I've seen this shit. Like, you could change the name Musclemonsters tomorrow, and I don't think people would notice. You could change it with another channel that does the exact same thing. So that's a terrible grade for originality. Black Pill 8, he doesn't really talk about genetic potential. It's sort of an underlying theme in some of his videos, but it's not bad. He doesn't discourage people. And even though, again, he has the charisma of a wet noodle, he's not out there to hurt anyone. He's not malicious. He's actually helping people. His channel is helping people out there. So he deserves a good grade for the Black Belt. Humor 3.5, very standard for that type of channel. There is an attempt at humor. It's only an attempt, meaning that it's feeble at best and it's cringy at worst. It never really lands. It tends to just lengthen the video. It doesn't really do what it sets out to do. And therefore, I have to give a terrible grade for this because it's like a bland dish that is covered in spice, but somehow the spice is bland as well. And now you have to dig through a mountain of just like gelatinous sauce on top of your steak. And it's a bother. Parasocial 9, for a page with millions of subscribers, it's crazy, but it's because I don't think that the audience really identify with the guy much. So they have nothing to worship. So the parasocial is kept to almost a 0 level. And it's also because, I'll give credit to the guy, he has a message of helping others and therefore he doesn't put himself at the center of the entire shtick. So he gets a good grade. What was that fucking noise? Every time I make these episodes, there's something going on in the house. Empathy 4. For the same reason I just described with the parasocial, he gets a 4 because it's really tough to connect with the guy. You cannot connect with him. He doesn't give you enough. You don't know enough about him. You know snippets of his life. He shares snippets of his life on his website, but there's nothing tangible. Again, it's like you're trying to grab an ectoplasm, and so it just doesn't work. It just simply doesn't function. So empathy 4. God complex, in the same line of thinking, 8.5. He doesn't think that he's God, and he treats his audience like he would treat a customer. So he has to treat them properly because he wants them to stick around. There's nothing of a domination relationship going on. It's great. It's also very boring, but it gets him a good grade. Production quality 9. Good channel, good video. The editing is a little bit dated. It's the reason why I docked a point. It's sort of like it's 2016-17-ish. It could be upgraded, but it's still top level fitness content on this platform. Science 4. The reason why is because they don't really talk about science much, and every time they do, it's to clickbait. It's to put science explained in a video, then you watch the video and the science just vanished, disappeared in thin air, or there's like one study that's cited like in 15 seconds, never really explained. This is typically the type of channel that saw that science is popular and started putting it every fucking where, even though they have no love or understanding of it, and they just read an outline or they read just a synopsis of a study, they put that in the fucking description, and voila, they get clicks. That needs to be punished, so therefore they get a bad grade. And in the following vein, in the same vein, clickbait is going to be a 2 because the channel is a monstrosity. All of the thumbnails are clickbaity as fuck, with like the yellow circles and the do this and do that and big mistakes and science explained. It's almost a parody of a fitness clickbait channel. Like if you tried to make a channel that is as generic and as mainstream as possible, it would be that. So I have to give a terrible grade. Content recycling 7. Even though the sauce is bland, it still gives a different consistency to the dish, and therefore you're still going to eat it and you're going to think, that's brand fucking new. But in reality, that steak was just taken out of the garbage, it was again covered in sauce, and you think that it's fresh for some reason. It's a trick, but if it works, fuck it, it works. For some reason, this episode is full of culinary metaphors, maybe because I'm super hungry. Conciseness 8.5. Videos are to the point, they're short, they get shorter and shorter because it's meta. Good grade. The reason why I didn't give the full grade is because he insists on putting skits in the videos and they don't add anything. They need to be taken out. Seniority 8. 8, for a reason that is going to blow your fucking mind if you follow Musclemonsters, they've been on the platform for 13 years. 13 fucking years. That deserves a good grade for seniority. And it's funny because you can truly see all of the stages they went through, the moments where they were doing good, the moments where the channel was dying, and they went through all of that. And for that, person who runs Musclemonsters, whose name I read before the episode and who I forgot, because you just don't leave an impression, even though I've been talking mad shit, I give you mad props for this because it's rare. Someone who manages to stay a fucking decade on YouTube fitness and not turn into a meme is rare and still be relevant nowadays. Good job. It's not something that I'm going to be able to do. It's not something that most people are going to be able to do. I can already tell you that. Supplements 0, because I went on their website and they sell testosterone boosting supplements, which is bullshit, and therefore they get the worst grade possible. Physique 8. 8 because in reality it's between a 7 and a 9. When you look at the video, he's a 7. When you look at the thumbnails, he's a 9. It's that fitness schizophrenia where people look so much fucking better in their pictures than you look at them in video and say, what happened? Or what happened is, again, the fact that the guy is a professional, he knows how to market himself. So I, as we say in French, j'ai coupé la pomme en deux, I cut the apple in two, and he's stuck in the middle, so 8. Musclemonsters total grade, 123 points. Next up, Jeff Nippard. Programming 9.5. 9.5 because if you ask me right now, hey, who has the best channel for programming for fitness on YouTube? I would tell you Geoff Nippard. I don't think that there's really a case for any other person that knows more in so many areas, that go into such details, that makes so many videos with such, again, a wide array of expertise. He invites people on his channel. He's always looking for the new stuff. He always revisits ideas. It would be a shame and truly a fallacy to give him less than that. He doesn't give a perfect score because I think that some of his ideas on hypertrophy are a little bit dated and a little bit biased. Experience 8.5. Geoff is strong as fuck. He is big as fuck. He has experience powerlifting. He has experience doing bodybuilding shows. He has experience dieting. He knows a ton about diets. He has a ton of, he has a good background in anything related to exercise science. So he has to get a good rate for experience as well. The guy is not a Poindexter. He's not someone who sits on his ass and does nothing. He walks the walks, he talks the talk, and therefore he is fucking pristine. The reason why he doesn't get more than that is because he's a young buck. I know for a fact that in 5 years he's going to have a 9.5. Age is very important for experience. People who are still in their 20s cannot get a very, very high grade. It's just logical. Integrity 9. I want to underline this because you can look at this grade and kiss it goodbye for the rest of the episodes, because most people who get to millions of subscribers, their integrity is just goodbye. It took its luggage and it flew away. For the reason I explained before, you have to make a choice between clicks or integrity. Geoff said, fuck it, I can have both. I can have everything, and he did. He is scandal free. Can you cite me one drama with Geoff Nippard? Beyond all, of course, the people who clickbait using his name, can you cite me one person that has genuine gripes with him? It never really happens. He has maintained a perfect status, and that deserves an almost perfect grade. The reason why he doesn't get a 10 is because, of course, he gets dragged into drama sometimes and he engages back, as we all do, because when someone barks at us, we want to bark back. But that sort of soils the entire image of perfection, so no 10. Usefulness 9. I don't know many people who cannot benefit from Geoff Nippard's channel. You go on the page, you will always learn something, always. There's that one point docked because, like, for very advanced bodybuilders, for example, you're not going to learn anything. But even someone like me still learns from Nip. I think it's incredibly outrageous and offensive to say that in English. We say that in French all the time. But yeah, we're going to stick with Nippard. I don't want to offend anyone. It would be a bad move. So Nippard, for the usefulness, is going to get a 9. Character, 9 as well. He gets a ton of 9s. The character also is the same reason. Look at Geoff Nippard and tell me, is there anything that you see that you don't like? I mean, he has a bit of a shithead attitude sometimes, but to me, it just adds to the charm. The guy is a he has that lovely aura to him, where even when he does things that are a bit naughty, they just stay that. They're just naughty. They're never malicious. You can never pinpoint anything bad about the guy. Maybe it's a fabrication. Don't get me wrong. Maybe it's just a well thought out character he built, but I don't even think that's true. And because I don't think that's true, I have to give him almost 4 marks. I dug the point here again because he has that, like, that mean streak that's just under the surface, but sometimes it erupts. I love it. Personally, I dig these moments. I think it's very funny when Geoff is trolling people, but I understand that it should also impact his grade. Dogmatism 4, finally a bad grade. For the guy, he was going to have a perfect score. We cannot have that. So Dogmatism 4, for the simple reason that with Geoff, it's sort of his way or the highway, because he is a massive page and therefore what he says sort of goes. He has had a tough time in the past sort of revisiting some of his stances. He evolves, don't get me wrong, but he has to have a strict line and he has to give strict directives because he's someone that people look up to and listen to intently, and so he cannot be wishy-washy. I respect it, but it's still dogmatism. Originality 6, he doesn't really do anything special. Right? Nippard makes great content, but he makes great content on the basis of concepts that are just pre-mashed, rewashed, and reheated. It's seen and seen, c'est vu et revu, but it's good stuff. Again, If I make you an apple pie every day of the week, but it's the best you've ever had, you will not get bored, especially if the apple pie comes so scarcely because his upload frequency is rare. He is intelligent. He understands that with his type of content, he needs to be scarce. So 6, it's not a terrible grade, it's not great either. He has never revolutionized fitness, but he has fitnessed the revolution in a sense. He did something new without doing something new. That is, again, worthy of respect. Black Pill 8.5. He's been at the forefront of the battle when it comes to actually protecting strength standards, pointing out at people saying that, oh, you can never bench 2 plates, it's for the elite. He perfectly understands that this is a toxic mindset, and therefore, again, he damaged his reputation in a sense in engaging with people who are much lower than him, both in intellect and in status. So he has to get a good grade for the Black Pill. The reason why he doesn't get all of the grades is because, of course, when you follow the line of science, science dictates that there is a natural limit, for example, and so he's going to also spread that to his audience. Now, to his credit, it's something you rarely hear coming out of his mouth. It's very rare. So, again, 8.5. Humor 6. Not super high, but not as low as you could expect from a channel that is purely information. The reason why I gave a 6 is because Jeff has this thing where he will launch a barb at someone in the middle of a sentence, and it's so fast that if you don't break and pause, you won't catch it. Like some of his jokes, I'm not kidding you, you have to pause. It's like a subliminal image in the background for half a second. But if you catch it, it's going to kill you because he's very efficient. Like he's like a hobbit with a little dagger, and he comes from behind and he pokes you in the liver and you don't even see it coming. He always gets me. So 6, also the skits are amazing. I don't know if you remember, he sort of stopped doing that, I miss it, but when he did Bro Jeff and he does all of the stupid bro science shit, that's actually funny. And it's sort of also not forced. You never see it and think, another segment of this nonsense. No, it's always something that you sit through because it's great. It's well integrated. So he gets a much higher grade than most of the people who make as good of a content in terms of information as he does. Empathy 7. The reason why I gave a 7 is because he does a good job at connecting with the audience, but because he's taken sort of a life of his own and he's bigger than life, sometimes I watch him and I think, are you human? Like, I like you a ton, dude, but are you a hologram? Because you seem way too perfect. And even though that's great and all to attract people, it also means that I cannot connect with that because I'm not perfect, I'm a shithead. It's the reason why every time he has these shithead moments, I'm like, yes, you're like me. I can relate to that. I can actually connect with this. And maybe you can feel the same way as well. God Complex 8, great fucking grade. Again, tremendous job by Jeff Nippard, because he should have 0. He should have a 1. That's most huge fitness influencers. It gets to their head. The guy doesn't have an ego for what I see. He knows he's intelligent, he knows he has a good physique, and he knows stuff, but that stops there. You never feel like he's condescending towards you, which he could be again if he wanted. So he has to get a good grade. Production quality 10. It's perfect. What do you want me to say? It is perfect. Science 8. He has a good grade for science. I mean, Jeff Nippard has an 8 on science. Does that surprise you? The only reason why he doesn't get a 10 is because, again, there's dogma and bias involved, and it's still to push some of his ideas that he embraced science. But unlike some of the people that use science, he's not the type that saw the science hype and just jumped on the bandwagon. You can go on his channel. 7 years ago, when science, no one gave a fuck about science on YouTube, everyone was doing bro splits and going for the pump, he was already making videos trying to actually promote scientific ideology, scientific criteria in the realm of fitness. So he's an OG of this stuff. You can see it when he speaks. He actually loves science. He's invested, unlike some people. So he gets a tremendous grade for science. I think that this is one of the top grades you're going to see for this particular category. Clickbait 5. He clickbaits. He's a big page. He has to clickbait. He also does the thing that every big YouTuber does, where he puts out a video and it doesn't get enough views, so he modifies the thumbnail and the title to be more clickbaity. It's a strategy that works. It's the reason why everyone does it. I have to give half the points for this. Content recycling 7. He recycles content, but it's not bad because there's always also moments and pockets of just new stuff that feels brand new because it's something he's never talked about on the channel. He's always on the lookout for something, again, interesting to bring on the table. And he has been a pioneer for many things, ranging from, you know, like posture to certain types of cardio to certain types of muscle training, neck training, training your calves, etc. There's always something new. Jeff Nippard is an ever-revolving cube. You think you get him and then it twists and there's a different face and you think, I'm surprised. It keeps me engaged. So even though he has a page that's old, great job. Conciseness 7.5, he tends to ramble on certain aspects, things he doesn't have to repeat. The structure sometimes is a little bit flimsy in the videos where you could reorganize it better. It's not terrible either, but this is one of the few aspects that I can actually say he can improve on. Seniority 9, top grade because I cannot really look at his channel and say, oh yeah, 2017 that was garbage. No, it's always been good, and with him it's always been like this. It's a steady rise of quality, it never really dipped. So he has to get almost a perfect grade for this. He doesn't have a 10 because the channel is old, don't get me wrong, but he's not at the 10-year mark yet. Supplements 8. No perfect grade because I was very surprised to see that he has a line of supplements. And even though it's not technically run by him, it has his name on it. It's Jeff Nippard's stack and it includes pre-workouts, so he does make benefits from it unless someone else is scamming people using his name. If that's the case, Jeff, I don't know if you're going to watch this, I know you watch the channel, you might want to look into it, but if it's not the case, he does sell supplements. So even though he is the one who has been instrumental in destroying testosterone, he cannot get a perfect score because he still benefits from the industry. Physique 8.5, some of you might actually scream at this and say, how dare you, he is perfect. I agree, he is perfect, he's a gorgeous man. But in terms of physique, he varies too much, meaning that sometimes he's very, very lean, sometimes he's very, very bulky. I cannot, in my right conscience, give more than that because he always showcases the top, but he's also not shy in showing himself, even in pictures on Instagram where he doesn't look his best. So he is real with you, I'm going to be real with him and you as well, 8.5. Jeff Nippard's total score, 150.5. And before we move on to the next candidate for review, I'm going to check the time. Oh boy, these are always longer than I thought they were going to be. But I know you guys enjoy it, and I enjoy it as well. It sort of summons the judgmental prick in me. It's great fun, and you love it as well, don't even lie. Alright, next up, Geoffrey, Verity, Schofield. Programming 8.5. The channel is, and largely does, revolve around programming. It's everywhere and that's great. That's what's needed for natural lifters. So he gets a top grade. The reason why he doesn't get all of the points for programming is because there are some aspects that he has left untouched. There are some things he still has to learn. He's a new channel. We can all learn more. So he has some room to actually improve. Experience 8, sort of in the same realm. He's a veteran lifter, don't get me wrong, but he's a veteran lifter compared to the average person that quits after 2 years, meaning that he hasn't put in his 10 years yet of hardcore lifting, and neither have I, so I cannot in my right mind give more than an 8. Also, he's a young buck, just like Nippard is. There is time for experience to actually build in. There's time for the beard to grow longer and to actually start developing some gray and white streaks, and at this point, he will earn a perfect 10. Integrity 8, lots of 8s again. For the integrity, refer to what I said about Nippard. The thing with GVS is that he has integrity in spades, and it's something that cannot be denied. But because he engages in battles with people who have no integrity whatsoever, it sort of sours his image. It's sort of the problem. If you go and you wrestle a pig in the mud, you're going to leave the pig pen completely covered, and so you cannot actually conserve the perfection of a 10. It has to go down. It doesn't really speak much to his tendency to scam people because from what I've seen, even though he pushes his book like a motherfucker, he is not doing that with any malicious intent. He's just selling something that actually is useful. And when we talk about usefulness, we can also talk about the next grade, which is an 8.5. Very useful channel. You go on the page, you're going to find something that is going to help. You're going to scroll through the videos. You are guaranteed to find at least one title that's going to catch your attention. You're going to say, okay, this I need to watch, and you will be correct. He doesn't get the perfect score because he is too generic, or at least not generic, he's too generalist, meaning that he does a lot of things, but because he does a lot of things, it's like those graphs that you see in anime or like fucking manga or video games, where you have like strength, dexterity, skill, agility, speed, brute force, and you have like points that show how much the guy has. GVS is like a circle. So he's greatly rounded, but he doesn't really have the ability to specialize or to reach out to people who are hyper specialized. So I cannot give him a 10. Character 7. Character 7. Why would I give a 7 to GVS? Well, the reason is simple. He's tough to actually pinpoint, meaning that you get his personality, you understand what he's like, but at the same time, there's like an undercurrent of darkness that you don't really get to see much, and that he doesn't let out very often, so there's a doubt. There's a doubt because he's not 100% discoverable, and maybe that's by choice. It adds to the mystery, and it also adds to the fact that some people just don't want to have to do that. But it can also leave spots and empty spaces for judgment. And the judgment that is going to be applied is going to be a negative one, because if you don't tell people on which leg you stand for a certain issue, they're going to, of course, start thinking that you stand on the one that is going to make you look bad in their eyes. It sort of damages his ability, again, to be regarded as someone who is perfect. That is the objective criteria. Subjective NH would tell you that this is actually the way to be as a man. You don't want to be an open book, but on YouTube Fitness, it is something that can lead to problems down the line, and we're going to see that. It's a theme that is recurrent with Geoffrey, Verity, Schofield. Dogmatism 8. Geoff is not dogmatic. He understands that there are certain things he doesn't understand. He has admitted plenty times that he has been wrong in the past, and that is important. Not many people are actually able to do that. At Dog points because he also has a tendency to look at certain things and take them for granted. But I also know for a fact that he's the type of guy that in a year or two is going to look again at these things and come back and modify his thoughts and his stance on them, which is again the reason why he gets an 8. 8 is not a bad grade. Originality 3. GVS doesn't do anything special or particularly refreshing. It's something I've seen a billion fucking times. But there's something to be said about a channel that, again, is not trying to reinvent the wheel, that managed to explode in popularity on the YouTube Fitness of today, that is oversaturated. That shouldn't be possible, and that shows one thing and one thing only. Even though he is pretty much as original as, I have no idea what to compare him to right now, but I will at some point, he still has managed to make a space for himself on this platform, and that therefore is going to reflect on other grades he's going to get. But for originality's sake, he is not original at all. Black Pill 8. Geoff fights the Black Pill with vigor, and that is great. He has videos that include the title Black Pill, but at the same time, he does have a tendency to overinflate his own genetics and his own potential, quote-unquote. It's something that's perfectly normal when you make videos about fitness and you have people who look up to you, because most of the people who look up to you, and by most I mean 99%, are smaller than you, you're going to start to think that you're better than them. And by default, that is going to start developing an ideology you're going to then push on them. It's something that GVS has to be very careful of. He knows it's a trait that many big pages have and that it's very toxic, but I also know that it sort of, again, develops underneath the surface. We're not even aware of that as creators. So it's an 8, it's just a warning, the 2 points, to remind him to be careful with stuff like this. He has to keep in mind that what he has on his subscribers is not perfect genetics or somehow God-gifted abilities. It is, for the most part, time and balls, meaning that he has put in the work for a long time, which is more than most people will ever be able to say. Humor 6. Sort of the same as with Geoff, it's not the main component of the channel, but if you watch his editing skits, it's always funny. You're always at least chuckle. And the thing with GVS as well is that it's like, You know that uncle that drinks too much at family gatherings and he makes sexist jokes and he like elbows you in the ribs, but you still laugh because it's outrageous. It's boomer humor. I think it's the best way to describe it. But it's funny. I personally enjoy it a ton. And therefore he gets a 6 for that. It's a good mix of funny shit and information, and the two mix well together. Keep in mind that usually if you have a 10 for humor, it means that the channel is shit because that's all you do. So keep in mind that, again, the criteria balance themselves out. Parasocial, 8. 8 because he is not trying to create an army of fanboys, so he has a good grade, but he also has to watch out because when a channel blows up, you're going to recuperate people that come from pages where they are used to worship people, and they're going to start redirecting their fanboyism towards you. You go on his page, you're going to see that in the comments. If you criticize him in any way, shape, or form, you will have fanboys who are going to attack you. It's a relationship that's very complicated. Geoff is fully aware of what the parasocial does. I understand that not everyone wants to be like me and just be on a crusade on this shit. Some people just want to shrug it and say fuck it, because it's not your responsibility at the end of the day. So I docked 2 points for that. Empathy, 9. You listen to Geoff, it's like listening to a friend. You just tuned in with someone who seems to actually care about you greatly, seems to want the best for you, and is willing to put in the work. And that is incredibly important. The connection is there. Even though you don't really know exactly who that person is and what they stand for 100%, the connection is still there. So that's a great grade. And that's the same for God Complex, 9. Even though, as I said, he has developed some black pill-ish tendencies, it doesn't really impact his ability to actually act like a normal person. He is relatable, he is vulnerable, he is a guy. He's just another guy, and that's excellent. That's the way we should be. It's, of course, important to inspire people through greatness, but we have to remain humble to some level, and he manages to do the two at the same time. So kudos to GVS. Production quality, 6. The editing is dated, but it's what makes its charm. It's not top-notch, it's not made by a professional. You can tell that it's someone who is doing this as a hobby, but again, it smells like grandma's cooking. It smells like home. It doesn't smell like a fucking Hollywood production, a soulless, like shout-out movie that is going to just be flash and bangs non-stop. It's great. It's homey. There's a homely flavor to GVS's content, but it's not up to par when it comes to industry standards, so I docked points. Science, 7. You hear Geoff talk about science. He does include science when it's relevant, so he gets a good grade for that. It's sort of the same with dogmatism. I also sort of sometimes see science being overused for certain aspects where it's going to be present in moments where it doesn't really need to be. It's important to be able to have a balance between anecdotal and empirical evidences. There is that on the channel, but of course, because people start to demand more and more that you use real science and not your experience, you're going to slowly start shifting towards studies, and that can be a problem because it's going to potentially lead the channel to lose its authenticity. So it's sort of like a warning grade. Clickbait, 6. Geoff does clickbait. He does name drops. He's always done name drops. It's always been part of the channel. Some of the titles are outrageous, but it's because he understands that it's something that's inevitable. You want to grow on YouTube Fitness, you're going to have to clickbait. You don't want to clickbait, congratulations, your channel is going to go absolutely fucking nowhere. Now, it still means that I'm going to dock points of him. But something that I forgot to say with the originality as well is that even though I gave him a 3, and even though I'm giving him a 6 for clickbait, something that I must point out is the fact that if you look at his thumbnails, they're not that clickbaity at all to start with, because he understands that the thumbnail is not really important at all, it's the title that matters. And 2, even though they're super fucking generic and they repeat themselves ad nauseum, every time you see a GBS thumbnail, you know that it's him. Like I could put 1,000 thumbnails in front of you and tell you, hey, pick up the one that Geoff did, and you would immediately be able to tell. Why? Because he has his own flair. He has managed to make his own thing. And as I said, it's incredibly impressive because he does the same thing everyone else does, but he does it in a way that makes you forget, right? It's like this, the magic pinch of salt on top of the dish that makes it taste amazing. So 6 for clickbait, but understand that it's because he is just trying to make a name for himself, and so that's what happens. Content recycling, 8.5. New channel, he doesn't recycle content. Most of the time when a video comes out, you're surprised, which is more than most fitness YouTubers can actually say, because he has ideas. You can clearly see that the guy has like a fucking list long like my arm of things he wants to talk about, and so it's always something new and flavorful. That being said, I am seeing sometimes a recurrence of certain types of videos, like the list videos, top 5 stuff, or the 5X, that I understand are very popular, but still constitute content recycling, because even though I'm eating the dish, and I can sort of enjoy it, I can still sense that it's the dish that I ate yesterday. So there's a problem with that. Concise this, 8, for the simple reason that the skits make the videos longer, for the most part for no real reason. They don't add anything in terms of information, they add humor. So I docked the points, but he got the points back with the grade he got for comedy. Seniority 3, it's a rough grade, but understand that it's because it's a brand new channel. I cannot give more than a 3, it's just not proper, but I understand that he always is going to get more points with the years in this particular area. Supplements 10, doesn't sell supplements, shot on testosterone like you wouldn't fucking believe, understands that most supplements are bogus and that they're just scams pushed by influencers, perfect grade. And then physique 8, I think it's a pretty fair grade for his physique. It's the same vein as with the rest. With the evolution that he has had for the past 2 years, I fully expect to be able to give him an 8.5 in 6 months, and then a 9, etc. Then I'll get to a 10, and we'll have to invent a new grade for his physique, I guess. Geoffrey, Verity, Schofield, total grade, 147.5. Next up, Fletcher. Programming 2. You will never hear the words programming escape the lips of Fletcher. It is not possible. It's not that he doesn't know what it is, it's just that he doesn't give a fuck. It's not what his channel is about. He's about intensity, motivating you as much as possible, so he has no use for it. I gave him 2 points because he understands sets and reps and intensity to some level, but he doesn't push it. Experience 7.5. CT used to be a world record holder powerlifter, even though that's widely disputed in this particular area of YouTube fitness. Personally, I'm a complete normie when it comes to strength. I see a big ass bench, I'm impressed. He also had a very good physique. He has been training for the past 20 years, I think, 25 years even. He has a ton of experience. The only issue is that most of it doesn't really apply to people because he has also areas that he never really developed much, like his legs. His legs are just area 51, no one gets to see them. I think he always wears sweatpants because he's trying to cover up, I think. He has very skinny legs, he always had very skinny legs. So he also cannot teach you much in that aspect. Integrity 4, I would have liked to give CD more, but the entire thing that went down with him having a heart attack and then I think a transplant sort of rubbed me the wrong way because objectively, it's not NH speaking now, I think we can all agree that someone who was obviously on steroids and ruined his own health by just bulking up to 300 pounds, that then gets a heart transplant is a little bit scummy because that heart could have went to someone that actually deserves it and didn't destroy their health on purpose. So I have to dock points for that. He also sells supplements. We're going to get back to that at some point. So a 4. Usefulness 2.5. The channel is motivating, it's entertaining, but when it comes to actually learning new things, you can passer votre chemin, as we say in French. There's not much to see there, right? The videos are not going to teach you anything. You would be better off just going to your local park and asking the bros there that do chin-ups how to train because they would give better advice. Character 7. I try to put my subjectivity to the side with this. I personally have a lot of love for CD Fletcher because he's one of the person I started following when I got just started on YouTube fitness. But I can also see that the bearded, screaming, macho attitude can rub some people the wrong way. I also understand that he just looks like a Tech 9 reject, like taken straight off a music clip. He tries to emulate that as much as possible. It lands on people like me because I'm a sucker for that type of person, but I cannot give more than a 7. Dogmatism 10. the only thing that C.T. Fletcher cares about in dogmatism is dog. He is not dogmatic. There's nothing else to say about it. He doesn't have time for that. You're going to tell him, oh, you don't curl the way, and he's going to pick 135 pounds on a barbell and do cheat curls and look at you in the face and say, what do you have to say about this motherfucker? He doesn't have time for this. He is the opposite of a Poindexter, so he doesn't engage in dogmatism. Originality, 8. 8 because he's sort of the OG, again, bearded, macho motivator on YouTube. He started this entire movement pretty much, and this was new back then. So even though nowadays it looks stale, keep in mind that it used to be the tits. It used to be like the fresh nugget out of the oven that you would munch on. Nowadays, there's cold nuggets on the floor and you sleep on them everywhere you go, because everywhere you go, there's an other guy, an alpha Chad, that is going to teach you that the key to success is to fuck chicks and to invest in crypto. Sadly, that's the legacy that CT left behind him. He didn't understand that he was creating a monster. Black Pill 8. No black pills on CT channel, but it's sort of also the reason why I docked points. If you listen to him, you can have massive biceps in 2 years, you can do whatever you want. It's sort of hypocritical because his channel showcases a ton of PD users, so it's sort of the reverse black pill where he's giving false standards to people, so it cannot be a 10, but it's always better than to just discourage the people that follow you. Humor 7.5. I'm sure that the OG understand what I'm talking about here. The guy is funny. He doesn't mean to be, but his outburst, the way he mumbles to himself, all of that is incredibly entertaining and will make you laugh. And some of the characters he brings on the channel as well are comical. But it's sort of like, it's meta humor because they take themselves incredibly seriously, but they're not. They're clowns for the most part. So it's a type of circus that you show up to knowing full well that the clowns are not really aware of what they are. I'm not saying that for CT, by the way. I'm saying that for the other people on the channel, like his son and all of the colorful characters that he brings forth. So 7.5. Parasocial 9. It's insane that he doesn't have a cult following, but I think that because he talks shit to his audience so much and he tells them to get off the couch and to not be a, what does he call them again? Something motherfucker. I don't remember. It includes motherfucker. I think he just keeps them in check. Like every time they come up to suck his dick, they just get slapped across the face and they're told to do a few sets of curls. So I don't know if he intended to do that, but incredible. It's like he put a shock collar around the neck of his subscribers, and anytime they try to fanboy, they get a shock. Very effective. Empathy 9. Okay, this one I'm sure some people are going to say, well, Empathy 9, you relate to a guy like this? Yeah, I actually do relate to a guy like this. Because I think that he has a type of energy that many people actually can see and wish they had, even if it's a fabrication, because I know that it could be a fabrication. Many people who have that macho attitude are making shit up, but it still functions, and keep in mind that CT did motivate a ton of people back in the days. I'm not judging here whether or not he gets people's results. I'm saying and judging whether or not he can connect, and CT Fletcher has a tremendous ability to connect with you, even if you're from a completely different walk of life. I was a young, skinny, white dude, and I was relating to a middle-aged black guy. It worked perfectly well. C.D. Fletcher ended racism, what can I say? God Complex 4, because it's part of the character, I mean, it's to be expected, it's that big, macho, bigger-than-life dad attitude. He has to have a God Complex. It is. If it weren't the case, all of his other grades would go down. So it's part for the course. It's a sacrifice to make. I don't think he ever took it seriously as well. Or maybe it's so meta that he takes it so seriously that it looks like he doesn't take it seriously. I don't know. Production quality 8.5. It's good quality video and sound, but the editing is almost non-existent, so I docked 1.5 points. Science 0, because there's no mentions of science, so I cannot judge him on this. He just gets the default grade of, you didn't really do your homework, and you are not even trying to pretend that the dog ate it. You just say that you didn't do it, so 0. Clickbait 9. 9 because C.T. Fletcher doesn't clickbait. The titles are weird. It's like a fever dream, but they're never enticing. They're never designed to get you to click. The thumbnails are just very generic. He doesn't really need to clickbait people. and that's something to add to his credit as well, is that he never tried to make it big, he just made it big. The content actually is informative, at least in the sense that the title tells you exactly what you're going to click on. It's like he's describing food items. Again, with the food metaphor. Again, I'm telling you, I'm very hungry right now. Content recycling 2.5, because it's essentially the same video on repeat. It's the same thing. It's a gym with guys that are going to eventually get shirtless, scream at each other, and bench. Here, I just resumed his entire channel. Or it's a video of Steve Fletcher, and it's going to zoom in, and he's doing curls, and he's looking at you like he's going to murder your entire family. That's it. Conciseness 6, because CT loves to ramble, but it's so entertaining that I wouldn't have it any other way. But I cannot give him more than that, because sometimes you're listening to him and you think, man, what have I been listening to right now? And then you realize, oh, nothing, he's just rambling, but I'm having fun. Seniority 7, because the channel is old as balls, and he never really went down. Even after his heart attack and all the complications, the channel rebounded back. He's still making content nowadays. Kudos to him, that needs to be saluted. He gets a 7. Supplements 3, because he sells supplements. He sells bogus supplements. What did I see on this? He sells pre-workouts, of course, but that's not too egregious. I think the thing I saw, yeah, he sells fat burners. What shocked me with his page, and I highly encourage you to actually go on CD Fletcher's supplement page, not to buy anything, but to look at the marketing and the designs. I was expecting something rough and like, again, Tech 9-ish, like very aggressive and dark. It's the exact opposite. The products are all white and pretty with like angel flowers and petals. It's so out of character, but it's also, in a sense, interesting that he would have a line that resembles that. I give a 3 also because I'm now being spammed by the fucking commercials of his Ambrosia or whatever the fuck line that he's trying to sell to people. And I caught him talking about the benefits of African mango. Bro, it's a fruit. It has no magical properties. It is a fruit. Stop with the superfoods, please. And physique 7, I'm not going to be an asshole and grade him on his current physique because that's just a low blow. So I'm going to take like an average of his best physique, and now he used to be a 9.5 in my opinion, even though he had chicken legs, he made it work. Now he is old and it's sad and it makes me sad, so he gets a 7. And we are going to move on to the last candidate for the day. Eric Bugenhagen, aka The Boogs. Programming 5.5. Eric is an athlete. Eric has been training for a long time. Eric knows a lot about programming, but he's decided to not care. That's sort of the gist of what you get on the channel. The type of methods he promotes are more in line with intensity and actually getting people to do something for once rather than to be optimal. And in a sense, he understands that it's the best way to actually get people to obtain results. Optimization only functions for people who are already sold on training. Noobs don't respond to it, so it's better to have them do 1 rep maxes every single day, Bulgarian style, because it functions. But it also means that I have to dock points because he's programming information, not knowledge. Information is really lacking, and that leads to some of the people who follow him to also be lacking and to think that there's only one thing to programming, and that's intensity, when that is simply not the case. Experience 10. I'm almost certain he's been lifting almost as long as I've been alive, and just for that, 10. He's been a powerlifter, he has a tremendous physique, he's done odd lifts, he's done circus strongman stuff, he has done pretty much everything. The only thing that I don't really align with is diet, because I disagree personally with his stance, but that's personal, so it doesn't mean that I'm going to dock a point. Integrity 8. We're getting into the part where integrity is going to be a mindfuck, because the more I make these episodes, the more it's going to be strange. Integrity 8, why? Well, because I know some people can call him a sellout and say that he doesn't deserve that, but he's true to himself. He's always been that crazy motherfucker. It's not an act, it's who he really is. I took off points because when it comes to his relationship with other people on YouTube Fitness, he's backstabbed some people, he's said certain things that were not the most virtuous in a sense, even though they are very entertaining, but still it dogs his points. But I cannot go lower than an 8. I think that he still deserves that grade for integrity. And that's the reason why I think he also stopped actually participating in YouTube Fitness. He understood that it wasn't working for someone like him who doesn't mince his words. Usefulness 6, for the reason I explained for programming, is it's a good channel, it's going to give you the mindset, but after the mindset, you have to know how to apply it. Now you have the motivation to break a rock down, great, but now you have to know how to use a pickaxe, because if not, you're going to use your forehead and you're going to get concussed. That is the problem with this channel. It gets you halfway there. That is the most important half, but I have to dock almost half of the points because the other half is simply not present. Character 9. Eric Bugenhagen is a character. Is Eric Bugenhagen really this crazy wrestler? We don't know. I think yes, I think he's not lying, but it's seamless, meaning that you don't see the strings, and that is what's important. The character functions, it fulfills its role, it's incredibly entertaining to witness him do his thing, so he gets an almost perfect score. The reason why I cannot give him a 10 is because I've been watching him for a very long time. I've seen that he's a sort of humped. I mean, he does hump the mannequin that he used to wrestle, but amped. He amped the ante and he's being more extreme now. And you can tell that it's because he's just escalating in the hyperbole. So there's an evolution here that's a little bit perceivably illusionary. I'm being just way too wordy for no reason, but I docked a point. Dogmatism 5, because he is not super dogmatic, but it's also because he just washes his hands of it. He tells you what he thinks works. He's not going to engage in this guy said this and this guy said that. He did it in the past. He hated the thing that happened afterwards, which is that it creates little walls of courts, of channels that go at it. So he just said, you know what, screw it. I do my thing. If you like it, you like it. If you don't, you don't. I'm going to scream in your face and say it's the best thing ever. So 5 for dogmatism. Originality 9.5. In this era of shorts, in this era of, again, over-the-top characters, we must all remember that he was one of the OGs, he was the one that actually started this shit, and on top of that, he didn't do that for just the clout. It's not a hype measure or a strategy. He's really like this. From the old days he was like this, when he had a few thousand subscribers, it is him. And therefore it is original and originally created within the self, and that deserves an almost perfect grade. The only reason I didn't give him that perfect grade is because the originality is going down nowadays. It's just because we're getting used to it. It's not fresh anymore. Black Pill 9. I think the Boogs is one of the reasons why many people actually pushed their limits in the gym. He made people believe that there was more to them than just a flabby sack of just melting meat that was not going to amount to anything, that is going to resemble the spaghetti boys in gas stations that you see around the globe. So I have to give him massive kudos for that. Now the issue is that, of course, some of his fanboys are going to start looking at him as a god, and when you worship a god, you start believing that you cannot get to that level, it's impossible. So I docked a point. It's not really his fault, it's what happens when you have a big channel. Humor 8.5. Very high grade, I think. One of the highest grades I've given for humor. Especially for someone who doesn't do humor as his main style. And the reason why is because he's effortlessly funny, meaning that he doesn't try. He just does his thing and he's going to say or do something outrageous and it's going to get a laugh out of you. It never misses with this guy, and it's almost impressive because you could think that at some point you're going to see it coming, because it's never new, but it's the old fart joke that somehow gets everyone to giggle every time. So we're being incepted by the Boogs, but he gets a good grade. Parasocial 2, because Rick Bugenhagen's fanboys are the worst, nastiest dick suckers I've ever witnessed. It is unfucking bearable. It is mind-boggling. I remember posting comments for the OGs that remember my comments under his videos that were always making fun of him, but like in a nice way. I was always even complimenting the guy, and I got raided. People didn't like it. I was touching their god, and it was unacceptable. And if you say anything about Bugenhagen remotely negative, they're going to just descend upon you like a swarm of locusts. Actually, I expect some of his fanboys to not like the way I talk about him right now. I know he got injured recently, not a reason to go easy on the guy. His fanboys can go all fuck themselves. Actually, I don't even have to tell them that. They're already doing this, thinking of the Boogs as they joke themselves off. Empathy 7. He connects with people. He used to connect with people a ton with the bro talk, and there used to be a good and healthy big brother vibe on the channel. It sort of went away nowadays because he doesn't really talk to the camera anymore. It's a lot of skits, so he lost a ton of points. I would have given him a 10 3 years ago, maybe even 2 years ago. God Complex 3, it's part of the wrestling persona. If you are going to be a heel, if you're going to have a big mouth in the ring, or on your channel, you're going to have to be cocky. I give him a 3 because it's an objective standard and criteria, but understand one thing. Him being that cocky asshole and that jerk off is the reason why so many people embrace that attitude as well. He's showing people that it's okay to be proud, it's okay to know your worth. And fuck, if a 6'2", blue-eyed, mustachio, gorgeous statue of a man cannot be and cannot act a little bit like a god and an ass, who can? No one. Therefore, I personally 100% vouch his attitude, and again, it's needed for his wrestling persona, but I dock points because such is life. And also, of course, it's because the God Complex is the reason why the parasocial is so bad. Some people don't get that it's supposed to inspire them, instead they just get on their knees, and so it is damaging. Production quality 4. The videos are recorded on a potato, the sound is sometimes outrageous. It's better than it used to be, but the editing, I mean, he edits as a joke. He edits just to make fun of editing because he thinks he's stupid, and I actually agree with him in that sense, but it's not high quality at all if you compare him to other channels of his size. So a 4 is already very generous. Science 5. I had to give him only 5 because he's typically the type of person that wipes his ass with science, but then out of the blue he's going to come out with a study confirming one of his bias, and that's just not the way you're supposed to use science. You either care or you don't. You can pull a rabbit out of your hat when it's convenient and when you want to make stew. Yes, we continue with the food metaphor. The video is not over yet. Clickbait 2, because the past year has been an endless cycle and shower of clickbait. Because he has to do it now. It's needed, it's a big channel, he has to box with the big dogs. And with him, there's almost an irony to it where he knows he's clickbaiting, so it's over the top on purpose. But just because you're doing something ironically doesn't mean that I cannot dock points. I can still dock points, and I do. Also, I have to say that the fact that some of his thumbnails include his wife, and some of the thumbnails are downright just sexual with like close-ups of her ass or her boobs is something that has to be docked. It's just, again, try to entice only teenagers to click on the videos. It works perfectly well. If he's fine doing that and she's fine doing that, it's their business, but objectively speaking, it is still clickbait. Content recycling 6, because he ran, it's not even that he ran out of things to say. He always said he didn't want to be a guru. And that shows. He doesn't really show information or share information on the channel, but it also means that when you do pure entertainment or infotainment, it starts becoming dull. It's carried by his persona and charisma. You're still going to watch because it's the books. But if it was any other person making the same type of content, you would have called it repetitive a long time ago. Keep that in mind. Conciseness 9, videos are to the point. Even the bro talks was to the point. He doesn't ramble much. He doesn't listen to himself talk, so good grade. Seniority 7, the channel is old. The channel is actually 7 years old. So what I did is I gave him a point for every single year. I docked points because what he's been doing recently is just not aligned with the type of information that is needed on YouTube Fitness, but it's still high entertainment, so it made up somewhere else with the grades. It's still a good grade. 7 is still good. Supplements 8. 8, even though he sells pre-workouts and he pushes them aggressively. Why? Because it's in line with his persona. It's the boogs. He drinks a pot of coffee before lifting weights. So him selling things that are going to amp you up and stimulants is in line. I don't see a problem with it. I still dock points because he profits from the supplements industry, but he sells something that's always been a part of his personal and identity. And it's marketed that way as well. And then physique, 9.5. He has such a good physique that people think he's not natural. We're not going to statute on that today, but he deserves that grade. He has a tremendous body. When he's lean, when he's bulked, it's always scrumptious and voluptuous and succulent, as the books himself would say. Eric Bugenhagen, Total grade, 133 points. And that is going to conclude this video for today. As I said, you can expect more of these episodes. I actually have scheduled 10 in total, so there is 8 remaining, and I think I'm going to release one a month starting now.